Hey friends, welcome to Whiskey and Whit. I'm Whitney, and in today's video, we are going to be making over a ton of items that I found at the Dollar Tree, perfect for spring and Easter 2021. I've got tips and tricks, free cut files, and a ton of inspiration, so stay tuned. A huge thank you to Cellars for sponsoring today's video. We'll talk more about them in a little bit.
First up is this really simple but really impactful sign. And this fresh flower market sign was made from one of these wedding signs that you can find in the picture frame aisle. So step one was to just cover up the cocktails so that I had a blank sign to work with. I did 3 coats of white Waverly chalk paint. And then my process, like always, is I go into Canva and I design my files. Now, I will link down below the files that I created, and some of them came from Etsy, so I will link that as well. Then this particular sign was made with black matte vinyl. I will link all of the supplies I'm using down below for easy reference. And then I went through and weeded out the extra vinyl. Now, I did have someone tell me in a prior video to weed from right to left instead of left to right to help with some of the harder to weed fonts. And let me tell you, it totally helped. I used it throughout this whole video. So the trick, weed right to left instead of left to right. But this sign I whipped up in 5 minutes, and it looks like something you would find easily at Kirkland's for a lot more money. In that same vein is this really cute tiered tray sign, and I made a few variations using this Dollar Tree sign. I recently hauled these, and in the store, one was loose, and I flipped it around and thought I could totally make signs with this. I need to go back and get some more because they were so easy to do. So I measured out my sign, I figured out how big I needed to make my decal, I cut it out on my Cricut. I used matte black vinyl across the board except for one piece of pink vinyl. Now I had to go through and use my little weeding tool to scrape off a little bit of the hot glue when I popped the sign apart, and it's really easy to chip that off, but keep that in mind as you are disassembling the sign. You might have to take off some of the glue to get that back really clean. But I made one that was fresh flower market. I made one that said hello spring with a little bit of a plaid motif. And then I created this pea cottontail for Peter Cottontail. The last step was just to reassemble the sign so it didn't fall apart on me. 2 of them I did flush with the frame like you'll see here, and then if you look, the Hello Spring one had the frame on the front. Like I said, these were so easy to make. All they were pop the sign apart, stick on a decal. Good news is if you've got these signs, all of these designs are linked for free download over on my blog. I'm so excited to get decorating for Easter. This goes so well with this little setup. You guys know I love making over these tall glass candles. I've done Ray Dunn inspired ones before, but for this particular one, I wanted to do a different spring saying. So I took off the sticker on the outside and used some Goo Gone to get rid of any residue. Then I cut out this decal with a peonies that says no rain, no flowers, stuck it on, and added some jute twine to the top. It's so easy. These are really fun to throw in different vignettes, and I love the saying no rain, no flowers.
Now, before we hop into the next project, let's talk about today's sponsor, Cellars. Now, I am a wine lover. However, I am by no means a sommelier. I don't know a ton about wine, and I really stick with ones that I tend to like because I'm always afraid to branch out and not like something. And for that reason, I'm so excited to be sharing Cellars. It's a monthly wine subscription that uses a super simple 7-question quiz. It's super fast, and it matches you with the best wines that fit your palate. It uses their swanky algorithm, and that algorithm said that the 6 wines in this box are what I am guaranteed to like. They shipped it right to my door, which is so awesome because it is like -8 degrees in Illinois today. And so I didn't have to venture out, and you're also guaranteed to love your wines, or they will send you a replacement in your next box. Okay, so let's bust this box open. I personally like a variety of wines, but if I had to pick, I'm a red wine girl. So I'm interested to see what they sent. All Bright Cellars boxes come with wine cards to educate and empower you to grow your wine knowledge. So it has things like tasting notes, suggested pairings, the origin of the wine, and the best serving temperature, again, which is not knowledge that I have. So overall, the packaging is gorgeous, and I have 5 reds and 1 white, which honestly, without even trying these, that is typically my palette. Bright Cellars is giving you half off of your first 6-bottle box. I hope you'll check them out. I really enjoyed getting my box from them, and all of the information that you need to get that deal is down in the description. So I just uncorked the Mojave Rain, and it is so good. It's definitely not as bitter as some reds, and I do not like any like bitterness. It's super smooth. Let's hop back into the crafts and let's make this cute little chillin' with my Peeps wine glass.
So obviously this starts with a Dollar Tree stemless wine glass and a fun little decal I designed that says chillin' with my Peeps with a little Peeps marshmallow on there. And I went through, weeded it out backwards, so I created a stencil, and then I went to apply it on my cup. This is just permanent vinyl, but it is scrap vinyl. And a trick that you can do to get a decal or stencil to stick flat on a curved surface is to just trim your decal a little bit. So I'm just cutting little slits. You don't want to get too close to your letters, but that allows you to stick your actual stencil down flat. And don't worry about any of those little kind of bumps because that won't matter once you pull it off. Then the last step before you go to etch the glass is to cover the outside with painter's tape. If you're a pro painter, you don't have to do that, but I'm messy, so I didn't want to screw it up. Then I grabbed some Armor Etch, and I love this. I have not ever done this in a video, which shocks me because I used this so much for my wedding. I did so many projects. Anyway, you're gonna take a paintbrush and really cake it on there. Then once it's caked on, you're gonna work it through in a few different directions. So go left to right, right to left, and let it sit for 10 minutes. After it sits for 10 minutes, then you're gonna scrape off any of the excess, which I just used an old gift card, and then I use my Cricut weeding tool to get out any of the little pieces. If you're worried about weeding, you can go ahead and run it underwater before you remove the decal, but I just like to do it this way. Then you're going to get off all that extra paste, and as you can see, it's gonna look like your etching went away. Don't worry, it's just the way the etching is. Once it dries, you'll be able to see it again. And the best part about this is that it's dishwasher safe. So cheers, friends, whatever you decide to put in your glass. I used the same technique to create a fun Easter themed little candy dish. So I just took another Dollar Tree glass container. This one actually is in the vases. Cut out 4 different pictures, well, 3 pictures, and then Happy Easter, and did the same process. So worked my Armor Etch with my little paintbrush in around the outside. I like to use gloves with the process. They're optional, but when in doubt, I just like to use gloves to be safe. Then I did the same thing, peeled off the excess, removed the little stencils, washed it off with warm water, and then I filled it up with some Starburst jelly beans, and this is so fun. I love how understated it is, but if you look up close, you can see that it says Happy Easter, cute little bunny, the carrot, and this probably won't last long because we love these Starbursts in our house. Pivoting slightly with this next one to a more spiritual take on Easter, and I think this is beautiful and I love how it turned out. So I took this cross wood ornament from the Crafter Square section, stained it in dark walnut from Minwax. You guys know my favorite stain. And then I just added a really simple script font that just says He is Risen on it. And this is one I made, so it'll be a free download down below. I'll also include information about fonts. And then to finish it off, I just took some beads that I already had in my stash, some unfinished wood beads, and I made kind of a makeshift little needle and thread with some tape on the end of some jute twine and created a little pattern that I liked to create however long a strand that you want. You can make it as short or as long. Then once my strand was done, I tied on my little wood cross, and then I also created a quick little tassel to tie on to the end in jute twine to finish off the look. Now I absolutely love how this looks for Easter, and what I also like is that after Easter, if I wanted just a regular cross, I could just turn it around and have it without the He is risen. You could definitely use that year round, but you've got different options with this, which I love options, and this looks so beautiful. I love that it matches my decor, but it keeps the real meaning of Easter in my house as well. Here is a really simple spring craft. This little bucket, I created a decal to have it say stop and smell the peonies. It's my favorite flower. So this is made from one of these little jute twine buckets. They've got a ton of different bucket options in this metal at Dollar Tree, and you could really use whatever you have. So then I was able to find some really pretty peonies graphics in Canva that looked kind of hand-drawn. So I cut out 2 peonies as well as my design that also has stop and smell the peonies, which are all available on my blog for you to download if you'd like to recreate this. Then I added my transfer tape and stuck them on to my bucket. I did my main decal in the center, and then I added the 2 pieces on either side. So I plan to hopefully figure out how I can incorporate some real peonies into this from my yard, because I've got peonies bushes both in my front and backyard. However, I did want to style this for you guys for this video, and I came up with a really fun idea. So these peonies actually were from my pew bows at my wedding. I made them ahead of time, so I went with faux florals for those particular pieces of decor. And so I cut those little kind of unopened peonies down so that they would fit in this bucket. And I think this is a really cute way to display those instead of keeping them in storage from our wedding. Here's another take on a beaded quote-unquote garland, and this one is created with those make your own ornament bunnies as well as some pearls. I did this same look for fall, and I really loved the dark stained ornaments up against the pearls. So I cut out the sayings Honey Bunny and Egg Hunt on some white vinyl, added those to my stained ornaments, and then I followed the same process that I did with my cross beaded garland, added some tape to the end of my yarn. For this one, I didn't use jute twine, I used some white Dollar Tree yarn, and I ended up doing about 25 of the pearls on each strand. Once that was done, I tied on my bunny, and then I also created a tassel for the other end. One tassel I left just white, and the other one I added some black and white buffalo check ribbon. You could do whatever fits your decor. These are super easy to just throw in a vignette to really pull together the look, and you could customize them whatever way that you want. I love the saying on this next sign for Shake Your Cottontail Family Farm. So the first step was to stain my egg with some dark walnut stain. And then I went through with some gray Waverly chalk paint and painted 3 of the bunnies. I made sure to paint both sides as well as the edges. Then when the paint was dry, it was time to add both a cute little fluffy bunny tail as well as our names. And then this top part is a free download for the Shake Your Cottontail Family Farm. I measured and cut that out in white vinyl and added that to the sign. What What I really love about customizing decor is that you can put your last name on it, you could put your family's names on it, you can change the fonts, you can change the sayings, you can really make it your own, which I really love. I love having pieces of decor in my house that are different than what you can just go to the store and buy. So that is what I was able to do with this project. Now I've got a couple using heat transfer vinyl and infusible ink. So these can be a little intimidating, but I promise you, you can do it. So this first one is some Decorative Hot Pads, and this is just a 2-pack that came from Dollar Tree. I used heat transfer vinyl, also known as HTV, and when you're cutting this, you want to make sure that you put the shiny side down, you click mirror on in design space, and you also want to make sure that your dial is set to iron on, which you can see here, that little dot is lined up with iron on. Then once everything comes out, it's going to be backwards, and that's because you need it to be a transfer versus a decal, which you'll be able to see in just a minute when I show you how I transferred it. The first step is you've got to weed everything out. So I take my little weeding tool, I go in and remove everything that I don't want to be a part of my transfer. What I love about heat transfer vinyl is it's a lot easier to weed, especially with some more delicate words. You can kind of tug it a lot harder and it doesn't come flying off like the decals. Then I'm using my Cricut Easy Press 2, but you could also use an iron. If you're using the Easy Press and the Cricut vinyl that I'm using for heat transfer, I use 330 degrees for 30 seconds. But like I said, you could also use your iron, which I'll show you how to do in a minute. And it's just as simple as putting your item on there, pressing down, and letting the timer go. Now, I like to use something in between, so I'm just using my Easy Press bag, but you can use anything. I let it cool, and then I peel my carrier sheet up. If for some reason your stuff isn't coming up well, you can press it for a little bit longer. I wouldn't do another 30 seconds just so that you don't scorch it, but you can give it a little bit more heat to help it stick. I don't plan to use these for actual hot pads, but these would be really cute for a hostess gift. I've got little hooks above my stove that I'm going to hang these on. I absolutely love this Oscar Wilde quote, "A flower blossoms for its own joy." I'm trying to embrace that in this season of life. You know, do things for yourself and do things that make you happy, and don't worry too much about what other people think. And both of these are ones I designed, so they're available on my blog. I purchased one of these bunny baskets a few years ago for my nephew Ben, and so this year I was so excited to get one for Finn. So I grabbed one for each of them, and I decided to personalize them with their names. So this process is really easy, same process as the hot pads. Go through, design what you want to do. I just used a simple font. I did their names as well as Easter 2021 for each of the ears. And then I just went through with my iron set to the highest heat setting without any steam or water in the iron. I went through and pressed them for about 30 seconds on each ear, let it cool, and then peel off your carrier sheet, and that's how easy it is. It is incredibly simple. This fabric took the heat transfer vinyl really well, and I decided that I am going to fill Finn's basket with some books for Easter. I'll also grab some other goodies as the holiday approaches to fill out the basket. I also have to grab some stuff for Mr. Ben to go in his bucket as well. And this final project, I adore it so much, but I put it right at the end because I wanted to end with the infusible ink. I know The infusible ink process can be overwhelming, but I'm here to show you that it is easy. So you're going to need a canvas for this, and this canvas actually is from my stash from years ago. I found it at my parents' house, so I'm using what I have, but Dollar Tree absolutely has 8x10 canvases as well. Step one is to disassemble your canvas. So I just went through, popped up the staples with a flathead screwdriver, and then used some pliers to pull out the staples the rest of the way. Then I grabbed my favorite stain, Dark Walnut by Minwax, and stained the entire frame and all the edges, so that was ready to go. Now it's time for the infusible ink, and I promise you it is not as intimidating as it looks. I purchased this design actually off Etsy because I really loved this hand-drawn bunny look. You're going to take your infusible ink sheet and put it onto your mat. You're going to have the shiny side down, set your settings to custom, and then you can select infusible ink on your computer or your phone. Then make sure your mirror is on and let it do its thing. I also then created a pair of purple glasses for my bunny. And these are in just regular heat transfer vinyl. Now when you go to weed the infusible ink, it is kind of like a cross between your heat transfer vinyl and a cardstock. So I used my weeding tool, popped up the little pieces, and it took a little bit, but it was so worth it. Then before transferring, I went through and just trimmed down some edges, and then I put my frame on top of my canvas, just so then that way I knew that my bunny head was centered. The canvas had a pretty thick frame. Then before pressing down, I just grabbed a couple pieces of my heat resistant tape. Do not use Scotch tape, but I have special heat resistant tape so it doesn't move. I set my easy press to 395 degrees for 40 seconds, and I pressed it. Then I went back, added the glasses over the top, did about 15 seconds, and they were set. Stapled the canvas to the back of the sign, trimmed off any excess, and voila! I love how understated this is. I have seen this all over Etsy, and I really wanted one of these cute little bunnies with some glasses for my house. It goes really well with the little bunny sign earlier in the video, and this is just so cute. I'm so proud with how it turned out. The dark wood, the purple glasses, all the things. This has to be one of my favorites from the entire video.
Thanks so much for watching. As always, let me know down in the comments what your favorite project was. I love, especially in these larger videos, to know what your favorites were. Also, thanks again to Bright Cellars for sponsoring today's video. Get your first 6-bottle box for the price of 3 bottles, so it's 50% off, and all of that information is down in the description, including a link that you can use to claim that. If this is your first time stopping by, be sure to hit subscribe down below so you don't miss a future Whiskey and Whit video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!